Have you ever felt the atmosphere shift the moment you enter a room? Eyes turn toward you, some filled with silent admiration, others burning with unspoken envy. Have you ever wondered why people you've never wronged suddenly rise against you with bitterness and schemes? It's because you are not ordinary. You are chosen, set apart by God's divine design, and your very existence becomes an awakening that unsettles those who have lived comfortably in deception. The truth is undeniable: your growth, your favor, and your light disrupt the darkness they've been hiding within. You never asked to be a mirror, yet you reflect their weaknesses back to them in ways they cannot bear to see. What begins as discomfort quickly turns into fear, and from fear, envy is born. Proverbs 14 verse 30 tells us, "A heart at peace gives life to the body, but envy rots the bones." Imagine the torment of their spirit as they watch you rise higher while they sink deeper into their own bitterness. But here's what they never understood: you never sought war. You weren't here to compete. You were simply walking the path God carved for you, led by purpose, guided by faith, and covered in divine favor. Yet, their hearts became battlegrounds, waging war against someone who never wished them harm. They thought their schemes would bury you, but in God's hands, every attack became the very soil from which your blessings grew. Their brutal awakening was inevitable. While they plotted your downfall in secret, God was orchestrating your rise in public. The weapons they formed didn't just fail, they backfired spectacularly. The very traps they set for you became the chains that bound them. And now, as you ascend higher into God's purpose, they are left grappling with the ruins of their own bitterness, choking on the ashes of their own intentions. This isn't just your story, this is divine justice in action. Isaiah 54 verse 17 declares, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper." Do you realize how profound that promise is? It doesn't mean weapons won't form. It means they will never succeed. They will try. They will plot. But they will fail. Every stone thrown at you will become a stepping stone to your destiny. So I ask you this: are you ready to embrace your calling? Can you now see why you were set apart? Why the fire you've endured has only made you stronger? If you feel that burning truth stirring in your spirit, let the world see your resolve. Let heaven bear witness to your unwavering faith. This is not the end. Chosen ones, this is just the beginning. What God has prepared for you will be so great, so undeniable, that even your enemies will be forced to acknowledge His hand upon your life. This is your season to rise, and nothing, no weapon, no enemy, no scheme, can stop what God has set in motion. Are you ready to soar higher? Because your story will not only inspire, it will awaken others to the power of God's favor. Stand tall, God's chosen ones. This was the most brutal awakening for your enemies. The nature of enemies' awakening. Why do people who have never walked in your shoes, never truly known you, suddenly rise against you with such bitterness? Why do they scheme, slander, and attempt to tear you down without reason? The answer is simple: you are a disruption to their comfort. Your very presence unsettles them because your light exposes what they have tried to keep hidden in darkness. The truth is, you did nothing to them, yet your existence itself became an awakening they never asked for. When you step into a room, their spirits react, not because of anything you've said or done, but because of who you are. Your growth, your favor, your divine calling disturb them because it reminds them of everything they lack. They see you rising, walking in faith, and fulfilling a purpose they have long ignored. And instead of seeking their own path, they allow envy to consume them. Proverbs 14 verse 30 tells us, "A heart at peace gives life to the body, but envy rots the bones." Imagine the weight of that truth. They watch you ascend while they remain stagnant, and rather than learning from your journey, they let bitterness take root. That bitterness festers into jealousy, then into hatred, and eventually into action. They scheme in the shadows, hoping to sabotage you, believing that if they can't rise, neither should you. But here's what they never understood: you never sought war. You weren't here to compete with them. Your only goal was to walk the path that God has laid before you. Yet, their hearts became battlegrounds, waging war against someone who never wished them harm. They convinced themselves that your success was a threat, that your light somehow diminished their worth. But that was never the case. You were merely following the calling placed upon your life. And so, they plotted in secret, hoping to see you fall. But while they worked behind the scenes to orchestrate your downfall, God was working in plain sight to secure your rise. Every attack they launched, every false word spoken, every trap set for you, none of it prospered. Isaiah 54 verse 17 declares, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper." That is not just a promise, it is divine justice. Their carefully crafted weapons didn't just fail, they backfired spectacularly. The very pits they dug for you became the graves of their own schemes. The chains they designed to bind you ended up shackling them. The darkness they tried to cast over your life became the very shadow that consumed their own. And now, as you continue to ascend into the fullness of your purpose, they are left watching, grappling with the ruins of their own bitterness, choking on the ashes of their intentions. This is not just a lesson in survival, it is a lesson in divine justice. They never realized that in trying to stop you, they were only destroying themselves. They thought they were waging war against you, but in reality, they were battling against God's plan, and that is a war they could never win. So, I ask you now, do you see why you were set apart? Do you understand why their hatred was never truly about you, but about the reflection of their own failures? They could not bear to see you walk in favor while they remained trapped in their own darkness. But here's the truth, your destiny was never in their hands. This was their most brutal awakening. They tried to bring you down, but in the end, they only lifted you higher. Key themes and lessons. 1. Silence as a weapon. There comes a moment in every chosen one's life when the only response left to give is silence. Not the silence of defeat, nor the silence of fear, but the silence of wisdom and strength. When the world erupts with accusations, schemes, and deceit, your refusal to engage becomes the sharpest weapon of all. Have you ever noticed how those who seek to harm you often crave your attention the most? They provoke, manipulate, and push, hoping to force a reaction. Because your reaction validates them, it gives them power over you. They were counting on your anger, your frustration, your desperation to explain yourself. But instead, you gave them nothing. Just like Jesus before his accusers, you stood firm in silence. Matthew 27 verses 12 to 14 tells us that when Christ was accused by the chief priests and elders, he gave no answer. Even when falsely condemned, he did not waste words defending himself. Because he understood something they did not. Silence speaks louder than any argument. Your silence dismantles their lies without you ever needing to fight. It forces them to see the truth, to face their own deception. Every insult hurled at you, every scheme woven against you, only reflected their own brokenness. And in the end, those who sought to bury you ended up buried under the weight of their own hatred. So tell me, how did it feel to step back and watch their plans unravel? To see every attempt to harm you turn into your elevation? That silence was never emptiness. It was God's strategy at work. 2. Miscalculating the chosen one's resilience. They thought they had you figured out, fragile, predictable, easy to break. To them, you were nothing more than an obstacle, someone to be pushed aside with ease. What they didn't realize was that you had been strengthened long before they even entered your life. Pain was never foreign to you. You had already faced suffering, disappointment, and betrayal. You knew what it meant to endure, to stand firm in the storm, to rise from the ashes stronger than before. Every insult, every act of treachery, every obstacle they placed in your way only refined you like gold tested in fire. Romans 5 verses 3 to 4 reminds us, We glory in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance, character, and character, hope. Every hardship you faced was not a setback, it was preparation. While they plotted against you, thinking they could break you, they failed to realize that every betrayal made you wiser. Every attack made you sharper. Every loss became the fuel for your growth. They underestimated your resilience. But now they see the truth. You were never fragile. You were being fortified for something greater. 3. Divine justice and karma. What they meant for your harm was only planting the seeds of their own downfall. Have you noticed how the same pain they inflicted on you seems to find its way back to them? While you chose to heal, to grow, to move forward, they remained stuck, trapped in the bitterness they tried to project onto you. They believed they could outrun justice, that their schemes would go unnoticed. But what they failed to understand is that God's justice is inevitable. Proverbs 24 verse 17 reminds us, "Do not gloat when your enemy falls, when they stumble. Do not let your heart rejoice." It is not about celebrating their downfall, it is about recognizing that justice always comes. The very chaos they tried to create in your life has now become their reality. The harm they wished upon you has circled back to them, and while they remain lost in the darkness of their own bitterness, you are rising, untouched and unstoppable. 4. The power of truth. Nothing hidden stays hidden forever. They thought their lies would protect them, that their deception would keep them in control. But truth is relentless. It exposes, dismantles, and reveals what was once concealed. Luke 8 verse 17 declares, "For nothing is hidden that will not be made manifest, nor is anything secret that will not be known and come to light." You didn't need to fight them with their own weapons. You didn't need manipulation, schemes, or deceit. Your authenticity alone was enough to dismantle everything they built. While they operated in lies, you stood in truth, and the truth will always outlast the illusion. Now, their carefully crafted narratives are crumbling, and the world sees them for who they truly are. Meanwhile, your integrity remains unshaken, your purpose untouched. This is the power of walking in truth. It outlasts every falsehood. 5. Rising beyond their reach. Jealousy distorts vision. While they fixated on you, they lost sight of their own purpose. Have you ever wondered why they were so obsessed with tearing you down, rather than building themselves up? It's because envy blinds people. It makes them waste their energy watching others instead of focusing on their own growth. While they plotted, you progressed. While they schemed, you soared. And now, the distance between you is undeniable. You have risen so high that they can no longer touch you. Isaiah 54 verse 17 states, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper." That is the difference between you and them. Every attack launched against you only propelled you higher. And now, they are left standing in the dust of their own regrets, paralyzed by the realization that they will never catch up. 6. The strength of forgiveness. They expected your anger to consume you. They thought their betrayal would break you into pieces, leaving you stuck in bitterness. But when you chose forgiveness, you delivered a punishment they never saw coming. Forgiveness is not weakness, it is power. It is the act of releasing someone from the control they thought they had over you. They expected your pain to define you, but instead, it refined you. Every time they think of the harm they caused, they are met with a truth they cannot escape. It didn't break you. It didn't hold you back. It didn't stop your destiny. And now, while they remain stuck in their own shadows, you walk freely in the light of peace, purpose, and unstoppable progress. 7. The unbreakable warrior. They pushed you, believing they would find your limit. They thought if they applied just enough pressure, this would finally be the moment you gave up. But they had no idea who they were dealing with. Every trial they placed before you only strengthened you. Every obstacle they threw in your path only built your endurance. What they meant for destruction, God used for preparation. And now, the person they thought they could defeat is gone. In their place stands a warrior, unbreakable, unshakable, unstoppable. 8. The unstoppable force. They thought they could contain you, limit you, control your story, but every attempt to hold you back only fueled your rise. They cannot stop what God has set in motion. And now, as they watch from a distance, they see what they never expected. You didn't just survive. You transcended. They cannot reach you. They cannot touch you. All they can do is watch as you soar higher than they ever imagined. This is only the beginning. The heights you have reached now are nothing compared to where God is taking you next. Are you ready to soar even higher? Because you didn't just rise, you became untouchable. Every challenge you have faced, every betrayal, every moment of pain, it was never meant to break you. It was meant to forge you. You were not called to live an ordinary life. You were chosen, set apart for something greater. The fire that was meant to destroy you only refined you. And now you stand stronger, wiser, and more unstoppable than ever before. Look back at everything you've endured. The attacks, the lies, the jealousy, the betrayals, they were never about you. They were about the fear others felt when confronted with your purpose. But through it all, you remained steadfast. You walked through the storm, and instead of crumbling, you emerged victorious. This is not just your story, this is a testimony of divine justice. Every scheme meant to harm you became fuel for your rise. Every attempt to bury you only planted the seeds of your elevation. And now, as you step into this new season, you are no longer just surviving, you are thriving. Isaiah 54 verse 17 declares, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper." This was never just a verse, it was a promise. The weapons formed. The battles came. But none of them succeeded. They thought they could stop you. But they only propelled you higher. And now, they are left watching from the sidelines, unable to touch what God has placed in motion. So, I ask you, are you ready to embrace your destiny? Are you ready to rise into the fullness of your calling? Because what God has prepared for you will be so great, so undeniable, that even your enemies will have no choice but to acknowledge His hand upon your life. This is your time. This is your season. Stand tall, chosen one. The battle is over, and the victory is yours. Now, let the world see your resolve. Let heaven bear witness to your unwavering faith. If you know you are one of God's chosen ones, comment 777 below. Let your voice be heard. And if this message has stirred something within you, share it with others, because someone else needs to hear this truth today. Your story will not only inspire, it will awaken others to the power of God's favor. This is just the beginning. Are you ready to soar?